You know, I've spent, God, how long has it been now? Feels like forever. Pushing back against the Department of Injustice, U.S. attorneys' offices around the country, district attorneys in New York, district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia. The lies about Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Endless efforts. Endless. They crippled Donald Trump's presidential ambitions, to interfere in the election, to get the scarlet letter convicted felon placed on his campaign, the violations of the First Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment. I've explained on Fox, here, Blaze, motions that should be filed. I've talked about motions that have been filed. We've had many of the president's lawyers on the program. But nobody, truthfully, has been more disgusted than I. As somebody who has spent my life, my career in the law, who served as chief of staff to a real attorney general under a great president. Now watch what's happening in our country, and I'm going to get to other issues relatively quickly, but I want to just clear the air here. Is something that I've said the Republicans in Congress need to look at and look at now. It's Democrat judges who are destroying the judicial system, joined by some rhino Republican judges. But the ones who are motivated, the ones who are leading the effort, are the Democrat Party judges. Now, those of you who listen to this program and read the various books I write should not be surprised. Why? Because the greatest racist to ever serve in the White House, certainly among them, Woodrow Wilson, before he was president, when he was one of the leading so-called progressive intellectuals, that is, early American Marxists, he made the case again and again in his original writings that you need to use the court system to change the country. You have to force your will on the public. It's not Congress. It's not the elected branches up and down the chain. It's the judiciary. It's judges. That's exactly what's happening in Washington, D.C. with Chutkan. It's exactly what's happening in Manhattan. And honestly, several of these cases should have been thrown out already. Just thrown out. But the media, they love these judges. Trump files motion for mistrial in New York fraud case. He filed it today. We were going to have Alina Habba on the program. I think she's an excellent attorney. She's asked to come on tomorrow, so she'll be on tomorrow. And she's, if not the lead, one of the lead attorneys in this matter. In this case, like Brat's case, are so contemptibly politically motivated, it's appalling. This case in Manhattan, in the civil case, has the potential for denying Donald Trump his private property, his business license, his ability to conduct any business in the city and state of New York. They've used a statute, as Fox has reported, that's never been used ever against anybody else. And why? Because the statute's unconstitutional. And why is that? There's no victim. There's no complainant. Nobody has suffered fraud. So the case is really a case about Letitia James and this Judge Engoron deciding for themselves, cherry-picking information on whether the assessments that were used, the valuations, and getting loans from certain banks meet the standard that Letitia James and this Judge Arthur Engoron think they should have met. No victim, no complainant. Not a single bank has testified against Trump. They're all paid back on time without delay. These are big banks with big law firms. The legal documents stated affirmatively by Trump's lawyers in his documents not to rely on the valuations provided by the Trump organization. You're free, and transparently so, to make your own valuations and make your own decisions. So there is no fraud. There's no misconduct. There's no victim. Well, actually, the only victim is Trump and his family. And so they've appealed. And so the legal experts say it's going to be tough to appeal, arguing that there's a mistrial. Oh, really? Well, the judge is a hack who ruled against Trump before he and his lawyers even walked in the courtroom. He ruled on the papers before he heard a word of testimony. And his conduct during the course of the trial, he was clownish. He was preening for the camera. The reason his law clerk sitting to his right was the target of Trump's ire is because the law clerk kept rolling her eyes and making facial motions and so forth. And nobody should have to sit for that. The judge should have put an end to it. So it says former President Trump's legal team requested a mistrial in the New York fraud case today, claiming, this is the whole newspaper, the trial judge and his principal law clerk's purported bias against Trump has, quote, tainted the case. This appearance of bias threatens both defendants' rights and the integrity of the judiciary as an institution. Trump's counsel pointed to posts made by Judge Erdogan to a Whitley School alumni page, which the judge appears to run, referencing the case of individuals involved with it, including Trump, his son Eric Trump, and Trump attorney Alina Habba. The motion cited New York Code reading that a judge shall not make any public comment about a pending or impending proceeding in any court within the United States or its territory. You know, this is basic stuff to get a judge disbarred, a lawyer disbarred. It's like Chunkin doing the same thing. She's gotten away with it. She refuses to recuse herself. So she's the judge of herself. No, I don't think I've done anything wrong, so I'm staying. The former president's legal team also addressed their concerns with the judge's principal law clerk, who's become an unwitting main character in the trial. They asserted the clerk has acted throughout the trial as a co-judge, conferring with the judge via whispers or written notes before most orders have been issued. Now, a lot of judges are so stupid or incompetent, it's the law clerks that write the decisions. And I was told by a law clerk to a Supreme Court justice when Harry Blackmun was on the court with respect to Roe v. Wade that most of that was written by his law clerks. This happens, folks. You actually have judges and justices, and I wrote about it in Men in Black, who are senile, who have the early forms of dementia, who are not intelligent, and their clerks control the opinions. And so I'm sure that's what happened here. The principal law clerk has given unprecedented and inappropriate latitude, Trump's counsel wrote. The filing also claimed the clerk has made partisan political contributions in excess of strict limits, including to groups that oppose Trump and support New York Attorney General Letitia James, because it's an inside job, folks. And it goes on. You have a intellectually corrupt judge, with a radical Marxist attorney general who should have had her ticket pulled running for office based on going after Trump. The radical leftist clerk keeps whispering in the judge's ear. And they weren't sweet nothings, I don't think. And the judge himself has demonstrated that he's partisan, that he can't be an objective referee. The way that he ruled, as there's no jury, was unconscionable. Trump walks into that courtroom. He's already guilty. His company's already guilty. Now it's just a matter of money. Penalties. And nobody's ever been charged under this law. And furthermore, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the feds looked at this case and said, no, we're not in on this. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office looked at this, as bad as they are, and said, no, we're not in on this. And Letitia James jumped into it anyway. Summary judgment should have been given to Trump. In fact, it should have been dismissed even without summary judgment. I'm not going to get into all the details there. It should have been dismissed, period. And so they're having to appeal to another Democrat-controlled appellate court. Then they can appeal to their highest court, which there they call the Court of Appeals. It's kind of screwed up, but that's what they do. So Trump and his family and his organization are stuck in this funnel where there's Democrat authority, Democrat control every step of the way. In the end, they may have to try the U.S. Supreme Court, but they don't seem to have the courage to do much. And I would argue it's a violation of the Fifth Amendment, the Takings Clause. And I would argue it's a violation of due process under the Fifth Amendment. So I believe there are federal constitutional arguments that can be made at some point. But we'll have Alina Habba on the program tomorrow. I want to go through this as we go through every one of these cases. And in Washington, D.C., Jack the Ripper Smith is losing his mind. He's losing his temperament, such as it is. He's demanding that the appellate court dismiss the waste of time with these motions. They're just trying to delay, and we, the federal government, we're in a hurry to put Trump in prison before the first vote is cast, When Trump's lawyers have argued that he actually does fall under executive privilege, that the actions he's being attacked for occurred when he was president of the United States. And that is a very strong argument, by the way. No president's had to make that argument before because no president's been treated this way. And, of course, they're challenging the gag order, which is utterly unconstitutional. And so Jack the Ripper, the phony special prosecutor, nothing special about him. He's a headhunter. He wants the gag order expanded. Even the disreputable ACLU, the American Criminal Liberties Union, has said we hold our nose because we hate Trump, but this is clearly unconstitutional. But the position of the Department of Justice is the First Amendment doesn't apply to a defendant, the First Amendment doesn't apply to a former president, and the First Amendment doesn't apply to somebody who's trying to win back the presidency and respond to all of his critics. So in other words, this is a grotesque undermining of the campaign of obviously the front runner for the presidency, interfering in the election, the evisceration of constitutional norms, and hack Democrat federal judges like the ones in New York and in Washington.